During the last phase of the later Vedic period, a great change came in the life of people. This resulted in tremendous growth of agricultural practices. One of the major reasons for this was the use of iron plows for the first time. Another reason was the beginning of cultivating rice and the technique of paddy transplantation. Gradually, these developments led to the emergence of new political entities covering wider areas than the Vedic Jana. Janapadas and Mahajanapadas. The term Janapada literally meant the foothold of the Jana, that is, the territory where the Jana or people of the certain tribe resided. In a broader sense, the term was used for a territory under a ruler. As a Jana or tribe became identified with particular territories, the rulers gradually came to be recognized as kings of Janapadas rather than Janas. However, a number of ancient Janapadas continued to bear the names of the Janas, tribes who lived there. Under their mighty and ambitious rulers, some of the Janapadas gradually expanded and grew into larger political entities. These were known as the Mahajanapadas or the Great Kingdoms. After years of fighting, 4 of these, namely Magadha, Vatsa, Avanti and Kosala, emerged as the most powerful and important Mahajanapadas. Subsequently, Magadha overtook the other 3 and remained the epicenter of all major political activities across the Indian subcontinent for many centuries. According to some ancient Buddhist texts, as many as 16 Mahajanapadas, including kingdoms and republics, emerged in the northern and northwestern parts of the Indian subcontinent around 600 BCE. These are regarded by historians as the earliest states in India. Types of government. The Mahajanapadas were basically of 2 types. Those Mahajanapadas that were ruled by individual kings were called monarchies, while those that were governed by a council of rulers were called republics or Ganasanghas. Monarchies. Kings of some Mahajanapadas steadily assumed great power and began to exercise complete control over all affairs relating to their subjects. Due to this, monarchy became the dominant form of state and government. The institution of kingship became hereditary and based on the principle of primogeniture or Jeshtadhikar. As per this principle, the eldest son of the king succeeded his father and occupied the throne after the death of the latter. The king would often nominate his successor during his lifetime. The prince who was thus nominated by his royal father as his successor was called heir apparent or Yuvaraj. Coronation or Rajyabhishek of the king was an important ceremony in which priests and people from certain sections of society, apart from the members of the royal family, participated. During the age of the Mahajanapadas, the king became the symbol of the state. With absolute powers in his hands, he came to be seen as the protector of society as well as dharma. From the later Vedic texts, we learn about 3 types of officials who assisted the king. These were Amatyas or ministers who assisted the king in governing the state, the Senapati who led the king's army on the battlefield, and the Purohita who guided the king on how to perform the various religious and social duties sanctioned by the scriptures. In order to expand their territories through conquest and to establish law and order within the kingdom, powerful kings kept and maintained standing armies, permanent armies, always in a state of preparedness. Soldiers recruited in the army received regular salaries from the royal exchequer or Rajakosh throughout the year. Payments were made either in kind or in cash. For cash payments, particular types of coin called punch-marked coins were used. Paper money that we use today was unknown at that time. Different types of taxes were imposed on the subjects, and the revenue from those taxes was used for paying the soldiers, maintaining the army, and numerous activities of public welfare. Republics, Ganasanghas. Apart from the monarchical Mahajanapadas or large kingdoms ruled by individual kings, there were many ancient states where political power was exercised by a group of people. These were called Ganas or Ganarajyas or Ganasanghas, terms that are generally translated as republics. A republican Mahajanapada was thus ruled by a group of people rather than by a single individual. The group of rulers of these Mahajanapadas were usually male heads of particular families. They met several times where senior and responsible citizens made all decisions unanimously or through collective consent. This assembly was called Gana Parishad. The Gana Parishad had the supreme authority in the state. Decisions were taken by simple majority and in a democratic manner. The republics were mostly located in the Himalayan foothills, Punjab and northwest India. The Mahajanapadas of Vajji and Malla, as well as some smaller states such as Licchavi, Shakya, Kolia, Bhagga and Maurya were Ganasanghas. The republics were basically of two types. The republics comprising a single tribe like those are the Sakyas, the Kolias and the Mallas. The republics comprising a number of tribes are the republics of confederacy such as the Vajjis. New development, extensive use of iron. This period actually marked the initial phases of the Iron Age in India. Use of iron for different purposes became more extensive. Due to its large-scale use in the manufacture of plowshares and other agricultural implements, it was easier now to bring the heavy, clay soil of the Gangetic plains under cultivation. As a result, agricultural production steadily increased. Iron axes helped in clearing forests, due to which people started moving towards modern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. New techniques of agriculture. The main occupation of people during this age was agriculture. The revenue coming from agriculture formed the economic backbone of both the monarchical and republican states. Due to the discovery of new and more productive techniques and tools, agricultural production increased substantially. Technique of paddy transplantation. During this age, people learned the technique of paddy transplantation. This technique, which is still in practice, is highly productive. In this technique, saplings were grown and then planted in prepared fields, rather than seeds being scattered on the ground. It required the employment of large number of workers. Dasas and karmakaras, laborers, performed this task. Organized system of taxation. As we have already discussed, the kings needed resources to meet the expenses of their kingdoms. A number of taxes were levied on crops grown by peasants. 1/6 of the produce, Sadbhaga, was fixed as the king's share of the tax. It was collected in kind and later on in cash. Bali was another important tax. Apart from farmers, craftspeople such as potters, weavers, carpenters, etc. also paid certain taxes. Tax paid in the form of labor was called Vishti. It involved offering free services to the king. Tax collectors were appointed by kings to assess and collect taxes. Trade and urbanization. With the increase in agricultural production, people began the practice of preserving or storing the grain they could not consume. The additional produce kept aside for the total amount was called surplus. A substantial portion of agricultural surplus went into the payment of different taxes, while some of it was also traded in the form of commodities. This period witnessed an increase in trading activities, which lasted many centuries. The goods produced by craftspersons were carried over long distances by merchants. They may have used the punch-marked coins as the medium of exchange. Merchants organized themselves into associations or guilds, which were called shrenis. Goods were taken as far away as Takshashila in northwest India. Brigugacha and Sopara on the west coast were important seaports from where the goods were sent to West Asia. Society. The social setup of the Janapadas or Mahajanapadas was similar to that of the later Vedic period. The Varna system, characterized by the division of society into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, assumed more concrete form and came to be firmly established in the society. Steadily, it ceased to be skill-based and became hereditary. Thus, the son of a merchant could only become a merchant. Many people from different sections of society began to oppose the Varna system, which essentially reflected the predominance of the Brahman priests. Some warrior kings felt that they were superior to the priests. Others objected to birth being the decisive factor for the allotment of Varna. Villages grew in size and number with steady increase in population. They were well connected with each other by roads and rivers. Each village had a headman, Gramini or Gramika, who was a link between the village and the king. Sometimes villages developed into towns, particularly if they were famous for certain types of crafts. Towns and cities also emerged because of their proximity to trade routes. Religion. From 600 BCE, the Vedic religious system underwent transformation. In this age, the Brahmins had begun to dominate the religious practices. They encouraged complex rituals, elaborate sacrifices, expensive ceremonies, etc. People gradually became dissatisfied with the existing form of religion and sought different religious options. As a result, new religions such as Jainism and Buddhism, which did not conform to Brahmanical principles, became popular. We shall read more about Buddhism and Jainism in the next chapter. By the 6th century BCE, rigidities of the caste system resulted in social division based on discriminatory practices and conflicts among different groups of people. Brahmins claimed the most powerful status and enjoyed special privileges. They were even free from paying taxes. The Kshatriyas, the second most powerful class of people, were opposed to this domination of the Brahmins. Almost all the taxes were paid by the Vaishyas, who practiced agriculture, cattle rearing and trade. Though they were a very wealthy class, they were placed below the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. The Shudras, who represented the lowermost stratum of the later Vedic social order, worked as slaves, craftspersons, and laborers. They were deprived of all rights enjoyed by the other three classes of society. All these led to a widespread social discontent, reasons for the decline of the Vedic religion. Almost all the religious texts of this period were written in Sanskrit. Ironically, however, Pali and Prakrit were the languages of the common people. The Brahmins exploited people's ignorance to their personal gains and misused power to amass wealth and become more and more powerful. People steadily began to dislike complex and expensive rituals and sacrifices. They started using iron on a wide scale and for different purposes. Forests were cleared to bring more land under cultivation. Subsequently, the use of the iron plowshare as the new agricultural technique at that time required the use of bullocks. As a result, the Vedic practice of animal sacrifice began to be viewed as a stumbling block to the interests of the new agricultural economy. Rapid urbanization was another remarkable feature of this age. It led to the rise of cities in North India such as Kaushambi, Shravasti, Vaishali, etc. Soon the age-old barter system was replaced by a currency system for economic and trade transactions. Thus, punch-marked coins began to be used. A vast majority of people disliked the new materialistic city life characterized by these changes. They craved for a new faith that could promote simple living. All these circumstances led to the emergence of many new and unorthodox religious sects. Among these, Jainism and Buddhism were most popular and developed into well-organized religions. Both Jainism and Buddhism did not attach any importance to the Varna system prevailing in the society. They also did not support the Vedic ritualistic practices and advocated non-violence. Neighbors of India: Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh and Myanmar are the countries bordering India. The island country of Sri Lanka off the southeast coast of India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, India and Bangladesh together form a huge landmass commonly referred to as the Indian subcontinent. It is cut off from the rest of Asia by the lofty Himalayas in the north and adjacent mountain ranges that run along the west and the east. The Himalayas also act as a barrier and protect the country from the icy cold winds of Central Asia. The two seas surrounding the Indian landmass help to keep temperatures warm. Buddhism was the most significant and popular of all the new religions. Siddhartha Gautama was the founder of Buddhism. He was the son of Shuddhodana, the Shakyan king of Kapilavastu, and his queen Maya. He was born in the Lumbini Grove in Nepal in 566 BCE. It is said that from the beginning, Siddhartha had little interest in worldly affairs and spent long hours meditating. The four sides that changed the life of Siddhartha. Prince Siddhartha once went out on his chariot to visit the city where he lived with his parents. While traveling around, he saw on successive days a sick man, an old man, a dead person, and a hermit. He was so disturbed after seeing these sights that he quietly left home at the age of 29 to seek answers to the problem of suffering. This event is termed as Mahabhinishkramana. He reached Rajagriha and became a disciple of Alara Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta, two distinguished teachers. But he was not satisfied. He left them too and practiced severe penance in the forest near Gaya for 6 years. Finally, he found answers to his questions and attained enlightenment under a peepal tree at the modern Bodh Gaya in Bihar. The Mahabodhi temple, built later, stands at this place today. After this, he came to be known as the Buddha or the Enlightened One. He delivered his first sermon at Sarnath. This is called the Dharma Chakra Pravartana or turning of the wheel of law. For the remaining years of his life, the Buddha traveled throughout the Gangetic plains of northern India, teaching a wide range of people. The Buddha's main teachings are contained in the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, Arya Ashtangik Marga. Teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha was opposed to extremes of any sort, be it luxury or austerity. His main teachings are contained in the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering in this world. Each suffering has a cause. The cause is desire or thirst, tanha. It is possible to put an end to sufferings if desire is removed by following the Eightfold Path. According to the Buddha, the Eightfold Path consisted of the following: right view, right speech, right livelihood, right concentration, right attitude, right action, right effort, right mindfulness. While following the Eightfold Path, as the Buddha said, one should neither give up all worldly possessions nor live in luxury. He called this the Madhya Marga or the middle path. The Buddha preached equality of all human beings and rejected the importance given to Varnas. The Buddha had no faith in the authority of the Vedas or Vedic sacrifices. He also emphasized the importance of kindness and ahimsa or non-violence. He forbade the killing of animals even as part of religious sacrifices. Historians place the date of the Buddha's passing away between 486 BCE to 483 BCE in Kushinagar, in the present-day Uttar Pradesh. Buddhist literature. Buddhist literature comprises the Triptika's 3 baskets, including the Sutta Pitaka, a book containing the Buddha's teachings, the Vinaya Pitaka, a book containing rules for monks and nuns, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, philosophical principles. Other important Buddhist texts are the Milinda Panha and the Jatakas. The Buddha taught in the language of the ordinary people, Prakrit, so that everybody could understand his message. Buddhism spread in India and in several other countries. It became popular in Sri Lanka, Tibet, China, Japan, Burma, now Myanmar, Thailand and Indonesia. Some important earlier Tirthankaras were Adinatha, Neminatha, Vrishabha and Parsvanath. Organization. Buddhism encouraged people to give up worldly pleasures and concentrate on attaining true knowledge. The followers of Buddhism stayed in groups, prayed, meditated, and lived together in a kind of association or assembly called the Sangha. Both men and women were allowed to join it, though there were separate branches for each. They were expected to lead simple lives and beg for their food. Buddhist monks were called bhikshu and nuns were called bhikshuni, from the Prakrit word for one who begs. The rules made for the Buddhist Sangha or monastic order were written down in a book called the Vinaya Pitaka. The membership of the Sangha was open to all without any discrimination on the basis of Varna. Residence. Monasteries or viharas. In the beginning, both Buddhist and Jain monks and nuns wandered from place to place, teaching and begging for food, but it soon became apparent that movement during the monsoons was difficult due to bad weather. Thus, the Sangha evolved the practice of vassa, or retreat during the rainy season. In keeping with this practice, monks and nuns remained in a fixed location for a certain period. These fixed vassa retreats were held every year in temporary shelters, in pavilions and parks donated to the Sangha, or in natural caves in hilly areas. Over the years, monks and nuns felt the need for more permanent shelters, and so monasteries or viharas were built on land or in the caves donated to the Sangha by rich merchants, kings and landowners. Soon they began to reside in these viharas throughout Jainism. Jainism was founded by Vardhamana Mahavira. He was born in 599 BCE at Kundagrama in the present-day Vaishali district of Bihar. His father Siddhartha was the head of the Natrikas or Kshatriyas clan. His mother was a Lichavi princess. The sufferings of people disturbed him and he left home at the age of 30 to seek truth and enlightenment. For the next 12 years, he meditated and led a life of severe austerity. He finally attained Kaivalya, enlightenment or perfect knowledge. He came to be called Jina, the conqueror, that is, one who has conquered all feelings of sorrow and happiness. His followers came to be known as Jainas. Mahavira preached in Magadha, Kosala, Videha, and further east. His teachings were in Prakrit, a language largely understood by the masses. Mahavira passed away in 527 BCE at the age of 72 at Pavapuri near Rajagriha. Teachings of Mahavira. Like the Buddha, Mahavira was also against Vedic rituals and animal sacrifice. He taught people to lead a simple and virtuous life. He believed that every object, even the smallest particle, possessed a soul. Therefore, one had to follow the principle of non-violence and stop killing insects, animals and human beings. Mahavira opposed the Varna system and said that all human beings were equal. He stressed that freedom from the cycle of birth, death and rebirth was moksha, and this could be attained by following the 3 jewels or 3 ratnas of Jainism: right faith, right knowledge and right conduct or action. He advocated a simple life and extreme penance to achieve the highest spiritual state. He rejected the authority of the Vedas and opposed complex rituals. The teachings of Mahavira may be summed up as follows. Ahimsa, non-violence towards all beings. Satya, speaking the truth. Asteya, the practice of not stealing. Tyaga, not owning property and leading a detached life. Brahmacharya, leading a life of celibacy. Spread of Jainism. After Mahavira, the Jainas came to be divided into two main sects. The Shvetambaras, those who dress in white and wear a cloth over their mouth, and the Digambaras, those who wear no cloth. Jainism spread to many places in a short span of time: Magadha, Videha, Kosala, Anga and Ujjain. It also spread in some parts of South India and Nepal. Kings like Bimbisara, Uddayin, Chandragupta Maurya and Kharvel were some of the prominent royal patrons of Jainism. Under the patronage of the Jaina kings, Jain architecture, literature and art flourished. The Dilwara temple of Mount Abu, temples in Chittor and Khajuraho, the Adinath temple in Rajasthan, etc., stand out as some of the finest and most celebrated religious monuments in the country. Jain literature. The Angas and the Purvas are the sacred texts of the Jains. First preserved through the oral tradition, the teachings of Mahavira were subsequently written down in 14 Purvas. Later, these were arranged into 12 Angas.